welcome to Unity of Charlotte, where our message is, it's really funny. I turned it over the wrong way. I mean, I know what the order of service is, but I thought, what's this gibberish here? Where our mission is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. And I am here on this platform today with a special amount of energy because it is my pleasure to step in with a few other of our congregants who are going to talk about the Bible according to me. So my name is Reverend Pat Drea, and I'm so glad that you've joined us today here in person, this lovely group, by Zoom or by YouTube. And I want to start this morning with an energized sharing of our statement of oneness, and then that will lead us into our opening prayer. So with energy, tell me and say out loud and tell yourself, there is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. And I will share today's daily word. And was I stunned when I read that after I did my Bible according to Pat Drea? And it's passion. My purpose fuels my passion. Purpose sets my heart aflame with passion. Each day I awaken ready to answer the call of my heart, and to give my very best efforts and fullest attention to purposeful activity. Passion is the energy I bring to everything that I do. I discover the glory of God through passion, and as I do the things that make me feel the most alive, they fill me with energy and zeal, and they color the world with hope and promise. I recognize the divine presence behind it all. God is the source of all passion I feel, and that purpose drives me. My passion is not for me alone. The life energy that radiates from me inspires those around me to live a life of purpose and passion, to boldly express their divinity as only they can. And the quote from the Bible, whoever speaks must do as one speaking the very words of God. Whoever serves must do so with the strength that God supplies. Peter 4:11. And that sets the tone for our day. How wonderful that is. I like to talk about unity principles just ever so briefly. And we had a wonderful example last week. Several people have come to me and asked me what happened last week. But they started out saying, I know you planned that last week, but it almost looked like you didn't. And then somebody else came to me and said, I know you didn't plan it, but it looked almost like you did. So what happened last week for somebody who wasn't here? What happened was we were streaming Reverend Robin Volker, and due to a couple of snafus, no fault of Alan, we had a misfire with our computer, and we also had some interruption in the sound. So all that came out from Reverend Robin were croaks. And she never croaks, but that was a problem with the sound. And so there were a few of us behind Alan noticing what was going on. And what happened was very unusual for me because I like to be prepared for everything. But here's the thing, when stuff like that happens, how could you have really been prepared unless you had special intuition? And so I kind of looked around and I said, I see 3 people I could call up to do a sermon because they're quick on their feet. And you were one of them. Yes. And I also know that I've got Reverend Ned standing next to me. He's due to speak next week. I also know Reverend Ned really likes to be prepared. I mean, I look like a slouch compared to him. So I look at him and I say, I've got plan A, I've got plan B, and maybe even a plan C working out. And as Alan was calling it quits on the sound issue, Ned said to me, well, you know, I have brought my talk for next week and I am ready to present. And so I never even had a moment to get nervous, but I wasn't in the place of being nervous last week. For some reason, I was in the flow. And so I stood up here and began launching a short talk that would introduce Ned, and Ned walked in with his talk notes and hit it out of the ballpark. So was it planned? Yes and no. Did it look like it was unplanned? Yes and no. Was it in the flow? Yes. And that's how creative thought works when we are in the flow. Well, I do like to start out with announcements at this point in time. I am delighted and excited to announce Fred Monroe's new class, The Principles of Unity, which starts this coming Friday, October 29th at 10 a.m. live in the prayer room in the back. So yeah, let's hear it for Fred Monroe. And let's, as my friends when I was younger said, let's be there or be square. So be there.
I'm going to say something I've never said before.
What's that?
I don't know what it is.
Well, I also want to mention a couple of other things that are happening here. We do have a book club that will meet next on November 21st, right following service, 11 a.m. on Zoom. 11:30. Thank you. You corrected us last week. I appreciate it. Affirmative prayer is on Tuesday evenings via Zoom at 7:15. And perhaps after today's talk, some of you may want to be joining that group because you'll understand how those tools are especially useful to you in terms of manifesting that which you want for yourself and for others. And also the Path of Initiation, Lucille Cedar-Cran's book, meets on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. via Zoom. And it's a wonderful book. And it has inspired me a great deal over the last couple of months that we have been doing that book. So do join us via Zoom as part of that group. The men's group meets in person at the church on the second and fourth Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. And the Course in Miracles meets on Thursdays at 9:30 on Zoom. And I do want to mention that Friday evening, we had a wonderful couple of hours with Michael Brown, giving us a very solid introduction to community building. And it was a vibrant, inspiring, shared discussion that really has whet our appetites for an upcoming class. We'll be announcing those dates very soon as we've settled a few things on our calendar. But I do want to tell you, this is a marvelous opportunity to recognize who you are in the community and better understand how you can draw from our unity community and also give to it in a more active way that fills your soul. And I look forward to that. Stay tuned for announcements for that. I would like to have you join me in the affirmation for our new minister. So with passion, with energy, join with me in saying, together, we affirm that we are calling in and are ready to receive another wonderful minister who is heart-centered, wise, sincere, humorous, and collaborative, and who openly walks a spiritual path of love, growth, and service. And so it is. Thank you, God. Yes. We have a few new people in the audience. I did happen to meet a couple of them, Reverend John and Candy. Wave your hands. Welcome from Winston-Salem. Reverend John is a Unity minister, and they have just relocated from Texas. So we're delighted to have you visiting us, and please stay in touch with us as you make North Carolina your home. And I think we have a new person in the back. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to see. Oh, and remind me your name. Bruce. Yes. Welcome back. I thought you looked familiar. Yes. Great to have you. And now, because Reverend Ned already hit it out of the ballpark last week, a week early, we have 3 people who will be speaking to you about the Bible, the gospel according to. And I'm your first one. Now, yes, yay. This is an inspired crowd today. It's full of, thank you. Okay. This side, correct? Yes. So I want to start out with a warning. You're not about to hear anything about commandments, sacraments, rituals, saving your soul. You're not going to hear any of that. And the Fillmores, like other New Thought leaders of that turn of the century and perhaps 100 years before, have brought to us a mind healing movement. It has no creed, but its fundamental teaching is that spirit is more real and more powerful than matter, and that mind has the power to heal the body. This is a profound teaching, and the Fillmores brought it to us based on their own experience and based on the learnings that they had from one of the master teachers of all time of New Thought, Emma Curtis Hopkins. And they were early to develop their philosophy and bring it into the world, and it stands strong today and vibrant. So what I'm going to talk about today is the starting off point that I had about 20 years ago when I entered New Thought. And why am I going all the way back? Because I have realized with the 20 years of studying that I've done, the only way that I will continue to make progress on my own journey is going back to basics. And I'll tell you what do we learn as we use this teaching and integrate it? That you never get away from the basics. You only dig deeper. So I'm going to give you about 4 principles that are very important to me right now. And I sure wish I were free from this microphone, but I'm being told that I better manifest a miracle if I expect that to happen. So you are about to hear some of the mind-healing propositions from myself, Alan, and Fred this morning. But it's up to you, since we don't have a creed and we don't have commandments and orders and things you have to follow, and we don't do excommunication, you get to adapt them in your own life based on your understanding and your use of them to refine them in your own practical way. And that is exciting. That is one of the very most exciting things about New Thought, that you get to use it, you get to learn it, use it, and apply it. Throw out what doesn't apply to you and keep moving forward. That's what it's about. So my purpose here is to provide you with the principles that are most important to my life right now, and to experience in how I am experiencing life positively and functioning in ways where I continue to challenge myself to advance. And I assure you, I don't find this easy. I just want you to know, I'm not somebody who's got it all figured out. And I'm standing up here telling you, hey, do it my way. I'm only saying I am continuing to figure this out. So let's talk about the way to health. And the way to health, according to Myrtle Fillmore, is she recommends in her book, Healing Letters, and it's throughout the book, it's literally in every chapter, to manage your mental, emotional, and physical self. And why does she say that? She says it because she healed herself from an extensive experience of tuberculosis that almost brought her life to an end. And her husband used the principles and healed himself from a childhood injury that had disrupted the growth in one leg and the hip function. And one leg was considerably shorter than the other because of that childhood accident. And I understand from people who reported knowing him, they really couldn't see any deformity in the later years in his life. So these are people who used this principle and used it lifelong to promote healing within themselves and within other people. Both, I think, are dramatic stories of healing that then became the foundation for an extraordinary movement, which we call unity. So what our next slide talks about is that every experience that we have, no matter how great it is or how difficult it is one that is within us. It didn't get created outside. Now, we know that to be true, but when it comes to an experience we've had for almost the last 2 years, which we call COVID, it sure does appear that it's outside. But I do want you to really look at this idea as it applies to you. And I have to say, in recent months, this has become very clear to me that whenever I am experiencing a difficulty, usually it's a perceived difficulty with another human being, usually in my family, that it really has to do with only one person, and that's me. And as I have taken responsibility for doing that, I have had some very exciting revelations and also some very exciting outcomes. So I will say, in my experience, it is really a very good idea to embrace this and examine it in your own life, and perhaps you will have some interesting things happen to you as well. I happen to be very fond of Sadhguru, who is a present day marvelous entity in on the planet Earth. He mostly resides in India, but he does travel the world. He's frequently in the United States, and he does not advocate a religion. He advocates spiritual practice. And when he speaks, it aligns with what I know from New Thought. And so you may have some fun going on the internet and taking a look at, he does a lot of public lectures. There's tons of information on the internet about both that you can read and you can view. I start now with one of my principles, not only just the healing starts from within, but to also step 2, know your why. Now, when you know your why, your purpose, you will know and be able to endure anyhow. Anyhow, in quotes. I had an interesting experience over the last 2 weeks. I cleaned out my garage. It was very revealing to me. Things I never knew about myself got revealed in my garage. And so what the heck am I talking about? Well, we've lived in this house 25 years. And we, when you move into a Southern house, there aren't nearly as many closets as there were up north, because up north you had to have about 20 different pairs of boots to get through the winter and every kind of conceivable layer of coat because of the extremes in temperature. And of course I had younger children then. And so I'm doing what I think some parents do. I'm probably an extreme version of that, but I'm trying to prepare for every eventuality. So I'm finding decorations in the garage for a toddler's birthday party. I am finding gym toys for middle school, a pair of stilts, a pair of bouncy shoes, cooking things making cookies. I haven't made a cookie and I can't tell you how long, nor have I made a cake from scratch. And there went 2 big bins of things. So the whole time I'm doing this cleaning out of the garage, I'm examining what kind of a psycho kept all of this stuff, because it does not align with my current why and my current purpose. I think I've probably told you more than you want to know about what was in that garage, but there's really a lot more that I haven't talked about. And a lot of it went to the curb, a lot of it went to Goodwill, and there's a big box of giveaways. But I learned something because I'm trying to adjust to being a mother of grandchildren and a mother of adult children who have their own children. And I'm trying not to foist my old crapola on them, because I read an article, you shouldn't do that. So aligning with my new why that is not the same why as the stuff in the garage allowed me to purge much faster than I would have otherwise. And now I've decided I got to go through every room in the house. So get ready for some more sermons about what I've learned about myself.
Don't forget eBay.
eBay is great. I just don't have time for it. So recognizing one's purpose is very important. And recognizing new purposes in life is very important. So I am looking at who I am with my much older than me husband. He's not in the audience, so I can say that. And I am looking at my relationships with my adult children, which are much different than they were when prior to having their own families and having very successful careers. Everything has changed. And even my relationship to my own spirituality, because my experience is different today than it was. Some of the problems are similar, but they're not the same. So I suggest that it's a really good idea to go and take a look at your why and your purpose and revisit it. And so I'm going to show you a quick outline on how you might go about this. Make a list of 5 reasons you do what you do. Just look through your day and your week and write down the why. Why do I do that? Why did I go to XYZ? Why did I call so-and-so? Why did I go to this meeting? Why did I take this online course? Why did I read this book? Why did I clean my attic? What did I find when I cleaned my attic? And then summarize it down into one sentence. And that will reveal to you your current why. And once you have your current why, you will be able to identify ways, the challenges that you face, and also ways you can be more resilient. Now, as I enter into the next principle that I am working on in my life, I want to tell you a story. And this is the story of Horatio Spafford. Now, I'm going to tell you really quickly how I came upon him. I was part of the Unity Day of Prayer, as many of you were, back on September 11th, Thursday, September 11th. And the slogan for that day is, "All is well with my soul." And I went online to see what there was related to all is well with my soul. And I heard and saw a very interesting and somewhat tragic story behind a hymn that has been written. And it is a beautiful hymn. And if you make a note to yourself, you can watch it on YouTube. I came across Hugh Bonneville Williams. You remember him from Downton Abbey. He was the father. He's a marvelous singer, and he did, over the time of COVID, he did a wonderful Christmas pageant that was so edifying, and he told the story of Horatio Spafford. So what is there to this story that you need to be helpful to be familiar with? Here's the thing. Life can be so unpredictable. Joys and sorrows, blessings, distressing difficulties, they can happen really quickly. So how can we find peace in such turbulence? That's what we look to our Unity teaching to help us do. So what about this Horatio Spafford? He was a successful attorney and a real estate inventor who lost a fortune in the Chicago fire of 1871. He had just lost his son a couple of weeks before from, I think it was smallpox. He thought a vacation would be very good for his family. So he sent his wife and his 4 daughters on a ship to England and planned to join them later. So what happened? The ship sank in the Atlantic Ocean because it was involved in a terrible collision, and more than 200 people lost their lives, including all 4 of Horatio Spafford's children. And his wife almost died, but she was saved by somebody. And for quite a while, she wished she had not been saved. She telegraphed him and said, "I'm saved alone. What shall I do?" He immediately set sail for England. And at one point during his voyage, the captain pointed out the spot that this ship went down. He was in terrible turmoil that night. He thought about his daughters. He suffered. He was engulfed in sorrow. But to him came words of comfort, inspiration. And out of this, that night, hope filled his heart and his mind. He wrote down the words. And since then, they have become a beloved hymn. Let's take a look at those words. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, you've taught me to say, It is well with my soul. That too was the theme for the day of prayer this year. And that theme was a very important theme given the turmoil we have experienced in our own lives and in the world. To say, it is well with my soul, is so incredibly important. He was inspired to know that, he knew it, and he took it forth. It is well with my soul. What it takes to do that is an extraordinary energy. And so now I go to one of my other favorite books, and that's Lucille Cederkranz. And she is so aligned with unity thought. She also talks in detail about eliminating every negative thought. And that's what it takes to know that all is well with your soul. You've got to wipe every negative thought out. You've got to toss everything out that doesn't align with your purpose, with your why. You've got to do some really good cleaning out. And so Lucille focuses on that. I use this formula as my guide to attend to the 3 levels of my being as outlined by Myrtle Fillmore: the mental, the physical, the emotional. And I am required to transform my thinking to wipe out anything other than the absolute truth of those aspects of my being. Because if I don't, the negative thinking binds up a tremendous amount of that which could flow through me otherwise. So it's cleaning out the garage, it's cleaning out the attic, it is the cleaning out of the thoughts that do not serve me, and being relentless, making sure there isn't a shred of anything left to encumber the way forward. And isn't that what we are doing as human beings? And isn't that what we have been invited to do during this time of COVID, during this time of great appearance of distress and disruption? Isn't the inner call, what is it that I need to get rid of that no longer serves me? So let's take a look at what Lucille Cederkranz's approach is. We have 2 hands. Well, here, let's do this one first. Sorry. Pages are sticking together. The method for eliminating negative thoughts. Just start with one thing, just one thing. Identify something that's troubling you. And then write down every thought about this that comes to mind that you can remember. And you know what? What it flushes out for you is every little thread, every little snag in your thinking, and it exposes it to the light. And then the next step is counteract this with positive thinking. Find the truth in this. And this will be what it's trying to teach you. Then go back and find out what was annoying about it in the first place. And then the most important step of all is to love it. Because when you face it with love, it is also exposed to the light, and out of the bad will come the good when it is met with love. And this is exactly the same steps as forgiveness. So here it is. Here's our recipe now in the Bible, according to Pat, manage your mental, emotional, and physical self. That's what you've got to work with. Know your why, and anything that doesn't belong, toss it out, toss it to the curb. Remember always through all of this, it is well with your soul. And eliminate all negative thoughts. And here's the last one. Be persistent at it. You will find marvelous, marvelous jewels as you go about this. So I will share one small story as I close. I have wonderful adult children. And I have noticed that, and it's like many, many people in this stage of life, that sometimes I annoy them or they annoy me. Who knows which comes first? I'm sure we see it differently, both of us, right? And so I was noticing something like that recently, and I used that list. I said, what is this that has annoyed me? What set it up in the first place? And I started to tease out every thought that I had. Every thought, I wrote it all down. And then I wrote the contrasting, the affirmation. And I was so surprised at what I learned from that. What I learned was what was within me and sort of unfair, unrealistic, and unannounced expectations that I have that have no place in this relationship. Now, if you had said that to me, sitting next to me, and said, what are your unrealistic expectations? I would have said, what, are you kidding me? No, this is the way it is. But once I did that, and I realized, and then wrote the affirmation, I wrote the affirmation into a prayer and said it daily. And then with that adult child, the next time we were together, I threaded the words of my prayer into the conversation. And what happened is nothing that I could have ever imagined. This person, this lovely light in my life, started talking about how challenging parenting is and coming up with ways to address it. And so I'm here to tell you that we live in a wonderful world and we are here for a reason. Know your why, take good care of yourself, know all is well with your soul without any limits, without equivocation, and shift the ideas in your attic and your garage so that there's nothing left that isn't part of your why. And so it is. And now I hand this over to Alan Batten, who say to Fred, oh, that's right, where the book ends. So Fred, who you have heard talk many times and has never stuck for words, as you know, he was a major in the Air Force, but here is my opinion of him. I call him General. Come on.
Last night, I knew what I was going to say. I wrote it down. I worked with it. I edited it. It's 4 pages. It's right here. When I woke up this morning, you're going to talk about something entirely different. Now, that's principle 3. I haven't got there yet. Anyway, I was going to talk about principle number 2. And I'll give you a short message about that so you know a little bit. I'm not going to cheat you out of your opportunities today. I am passionate about the daily word. Do you know why I'm passionate about the daily word? There is a reason. 120 million copies of the daily word go out. 120 1.2 million, I said it wrong, 1.2 million people, let's say, they are reading the daily word. They know the daily's word is passion. Is that a worldwide power? Yes, it is. And that is a big deal. Big deal. Don't tell me you don't know what the daily word is. You find out, if I may be so rude. She wouldn't tell you what to do, but I'll tell you what to do. And there's another reason I'm encouraged to talk like this. I'm reading from today's daily word. The scripture says, get this, whoever speaks must do so as one speaking the very words of God. Well, I could sit down now. Alan would like me to sit down. That's a big deal. Astounding when you think about it. The whole world thinking about the same word today. Subject number 2, I hadn't intended to talk about. This came to me this morning, not last night. This is, let me get it right, the Unity magazine. The Unity magazine this time on page 8 says, has a title, Don't Mess with Fillmore. You had better read this one. Don't mess with Fillmore. Now, who wrote that? Who had the nerve to write that? Reverend Ellen Davenport. Reverend Ellen Davenport is a big deal. She wrote this book we've been talking about in my series, and Michael's talked about it, I know. She wrote Unity's 5 Principles. The book about Unity's 5 Principles was written by this person, Reverend Ellen Davenport. Vote for her. She's the vice president of publishing at Unity World Headquarters. Now that's a Unity energy, if you ask me. The vice president of publishing at Unity Headquarters. And she says, don't mess with Fillmore. But what did she mean when she said, don't mess with Fillmore? What she meant was keep the original Fillmore writings clear. Don't change them. And if you want to understand or study history, the history of Unity, you don't start with the old guys. What she's saying is you start with the recent people and then move backwards. And that way you'll be able to understand what they're talking about. When I was a younger boy, I tried to read Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Did you catch that? I tried to read it. It didn't make any sense to me. It was a waste of brain cells, to even try to look and understand it and stuff. However, now here we are later on, and I read some of it backwards. Guess what? I got assigned to preach about Ralph Waldo Emerson in the Tuesday night class I'm taking now with Reverend Robin Volker. Thank you. I needed that one. Emerson makes a lot of sense. That is good stuff. That's where Unity's ideas came from. Well, a lot of them. I'm not taking anything away from Myrtle. Myrtle came up with the fact that God, it is. That's number 1 principle. Today I was going to talk about principle number 2. Principle number 2 is, who are you exactly? And I'm going to go really quickly. I know I want to hear Alan. Hope I'm not over already. The burning bush in Exodus chapter 3 is completely misunderstood by the preachers of Christianity today. In Unity, we learn to look at things the other way around. When the burning bush said, I am that I am, guess who I am was? It wasn't God. It was Moses. It is you. You are the I am. Don't you say, I am this and I am that and I am something else and I am happy and I might be this and I might be that. We say I am, and the I am means me, you, not God. So there you have that one real quickly. The other thing is, what is the name of God? Oh my gosh, well, I don't know what the name of God is. Well, in Exodus 3, God tells you what the name of God is. God says, my name is Yahweh Hodveh. We translate it as Jehovah or Yahweh. I like Yahweh. So God's name is Yahweh. Let's not argue about God's name anymore. We now know. One more thing. Do you know what the last word of the Bible is? I didn't. I had to look it up. Do you know? Who knows the last word in the Bible? This is going to really get you. I see one guy knows. Not going to tell who. The last word in the Bible is Amen. I'd like to introduce Alan Batten.
Many of you know me as somebody who has a sharp sense of humor. I collect, among other things, pearly gate jokes. So W.C. Fields is on his deathbed, and a friend comes to visit, and he sees Fields leafing through a big Bible. He says, W.C., what are you doing? What are you doing? And Fields says, I'm looking for a loophole. A doctor who was very famous passes over, and he finds himself at the end of a long, long line leading up to the pearly gates. He's never had to wait for anything on earth, so he goes storming up to St. Peter and says, I demand to get in. St. Peter says, patience, you will have your turn. Please go back to the end of the line. But I'm supposed to be the best person here. I want to get in right now. No, says St. Peter. Please go back to the end of the line, which has gotten longer since you've been up here. Oh, darn, he says, and he goes stomping back. He's standing there, and this figure in scrubs goes striding by him and goes right up to the pearly gates and walks right in. And then the doctor goes storming up to St. Peter and says, why did you let him in? And St. Peter says, well, that's God. He thinks he's a doctor. Basically, what I'm here to tell you about is life is like going to school. We start in life like we start in school. And the difference is that we have designed the lessons. And many times I will sit there and say, if I have designed this lesson, what was I thinking? There I am. Yeah, I was pretending I could read. So when we are in school, we all have teachers. You had a teacher, I have a teacher, everybody's had a teacher, and some of whom we recognize, but most of whom we don't. And look back on the teachers that you have encountered in your life. You say, that X taught you something. And you possibly taught that X something in return. So as we stand in school, we grow through learning. We don't grow through vegetating. And we don't grow through Netflix either. But sometimes life seems to be hard. And that seeming hardness of life is us growing. Who here has experienced growing pains? Yes, that's what they are. Used to be that they were just in your legs and knees and thighs, but no, we're going to have growing pains in our relationships. So as we think about our lessons, we think about what did we learn? What could we have learned from the lessons that we face with all our people that we deal with? Now, we start with school when we're born, and we progress through school and learn our lessons. And when we make our transition, one time or another, we end school. And then we sit on the other side of the pearly gate saying, okay, God, what did I learn there? It's something that we want to know. But if you keep this one quote in mind, you cannot go wrong. Were you the best you could be? And you can do that by following John Wesley's advice. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, and all the ways you can, and all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you can. You know, he ought to start a religion or something like that.
Now we come to the part of our service. As you know, it's my favorite part. And it is where it's the offertory, where we get to know in our hearts that giving and receiving are the very same thing. And so what I would like you to do is hold your gift to your heart, whatever it is your gifts are, and say with me the blessing. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Join me in the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.